Public service announcement. If you're trying to be more in the present moment, first, take these off. They're probably really not good for our brains either, but that's a different subject. How to be more in the present moment. Everyone probably tells you to meditate, right? Meditation is amazing. It's also a very huge endeavor for most people if they're not serious and don't have the willingness to do it. I want to preface this arriving in the present moment how-to video with saying that there is no substitution for sitting meditation. To make it short, the reason why is because if you can sit on the cushion, as it's called, and sit there without distraction and focus on your breath, let's say, if that's the object of meditation, if you can do such a boring, this is a judgment of the mind, by the way, boring activity, then everything else off the cushion will snowball. You will be able to arrive in the present moment more and more in your day-to-day life. Next thing, everything can be a meditation if we choose it. What we're doing in meditation is we're picking an object of meditation. For example, this leaf right here. And I'm focusing my attention on it, and I'm choosing this leaf, and I'm choosing to focus on that leaf. It's a little bit funny to be filming a video about where to focus one's attention because I'm also talking to you at the same time, but this is for teaching purposes. Now I have that distraction of the sounds. Some people don't like sounds in their environment, but this is life. This is life. So if you're coming from a mind that is really frustrated by noises, or you're coming from, maybe you have a dysregulated nervous system. A lot of people do these days. The people who need meditation the most do. Especially people who have received all these diagnoses like ADHD or anxiety, etc. Well, what we're doing when we're arriving in the present moment is we're finding ourselves in this place of calmness, usually. Once we're able to disengage from the mind and its chatter. This is why I think the best way to start some type of meditation practice is by just walking, like I'm doing now. Now, this isn't the same as walking meditation. That is a specific type of practice where you're moving your foot in certain movements. And if you ever stay at like a Vipassana retreat or some kind of monastery, they may be doing walking meditation, and you'll get to try it, or you can just look it up and try it. But walking is very pleasurable. I mean, some people hate it, but that's also a judgment, right? I'm making a judgment on it. But if you like it, it's a great place to start. We're meant to walk, you know. If I'm sorry if someone doesn't have legs who's watching this, but hey, my grandmother couldn't walk, and at 102, she was still wheeling her chair. Yeah, she lived very, very long. And, you know, this is all about willingness. Let's talk a moment about willingness. That is the foundation to starting something. Is you must have the willingness to do it. Everyone wants to find love. They want to find the present moment. There's nothing to find because it's right here, right now. But you have to have the willingness to be in that, to pay attention to that. Willingness is the foundation. That's a conversation I could make a whole other video around. But so when we have a dysregulated nervous system, let's say, we're being taken out of the present moment a lot, or we're stressed. And most people, let's face it, unless you're actually devoting to a regular meditation practice, you're living a very stressed life where the mind is constantly chattering and you're paying attention to it. And you're taken out of the present moment and all of the beauty that's right here. Because here's the thing, folks. My friends, I know how this is because I lived with a dysregulated nervous system most of my life. And it was as though, I might as well have had somebody with a gun to my head all the time. Was there someone with a gun to my head all the time? No. And it's a terrible way to live. We know that. So you've really got to have this intention, this willingness, and develop this discipline. Discipline, I like this. Dr. K said this recently. I heard him say, I never heard it in these words. Discipline is an emotion. Yes, it is an emotion. That makes sense. So it starts with this willingness, though. We have to be willing to do it. But everyone says, go sit down and meditate, and that seems like a huge feat for people. So start here, right? So one of the things I love to do, these trees are so cool, by the way, is something, let me go back. I might not even edit that part. I want to go back to what I was meaning to say. If you are having a dysregulated nervous system, you're coming from trauma or something, you may have a therapist tell you to do orienting. Orienting, I like to call it, it's a fancy word for basically arriving in the present moment. And what we're doing when we orient is we are choosing to focus our attention on something in our environment, and we start with the five senses. And so we might start with sounds. You'll probably hear it because this thing picks up every sound. There's this that thing. That bird. It said. There's other ones around. The rustle of the trees. And they might tell you to go and start with 3 to 5 things that you start hearing. And that's taking you out of this trauma response that's making you live in the brain and taking you out of the moment. And, you're all disrupted at that moment. Something I want to address here also while I'm editing this is if you have a dysregulated nervous system and you've been through trauma or some of these other things that have happened, you may be dissociated a lot. Dissociation. Look it up if you have not heard of it. But it's kind of like you're phased out of what is really going on in this moment. So what does it feel like? It feels like you're kind of like living in a haze. Maybe you space out, as it's called. You're spacey. And, it took me years and years of practicing, of committing to the present moment, to come into the present moment. And part of that meant that I had to stop dissociating. I had to choose to stop. I didn't want to all the time. It was not just that it was habitual, because that was like my chronic state of living, but it was comfortable. It's comfortable to live like that because it's like a protective bubble, and you don't have to face up to something that you're afraid of in the present moment. But actually, what's going on when you're dissociating and checking out is you are still in this whole trauma response, basically. And it's not safe. It's not any safer than the present moment. In fact, it's less safe technically, because unless someone, like I'm saying in this video, is holding a gun up to your head or something really actually dangerous is going on, you're just living in trauma response instead. So, if that's you, think of it logically like that. This is a choice, and it's a choice that every time you notice that you're dissociating, to come back into the moment, to orient. And like I'm going to address in this video more, that we may feel, if we're conditioned to have to dissociate, we feel like there's so much stimuli going on and we're not safe. Start off small, like I'm saying soon, that you start off in nature, where it is enjoyable to do this. Now, maybe I might go to sites, and I'm looking at these leaves up here. I'm just looking at them. I don't need to go into conceptualizing or, oh, I love the green. Oh, it's not as good as this green. Da 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 da. Blah 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 blah. That's all the mind's chatter again, and the mind is going to do that. That's how it does. That's what it does. The ego. It's technically the ego. It's always going into comparisons. It's always like nothing's ever good enough. It's always in this lack mindset. That there's always something more beautiful to look at. There's always more somewhere else, and it's never here. The bar is always higher elsewhere. You follow? You should, because that's how it goes, and you know how it goes by now. You've been living with the ego as part of this life, this life that we're living here, right? So I'm looking now. I mean, I can look down at the grass, and I can just look at the colors and I'm not even thinking of the colors. I'm just looking, really. Any time that my attention drifts away from what I had chosen to focus on, I bring it back to what I'm focusing on. Sometimes it's like you've got to pull it back to what you chose. That's the way this works. It's a constant practice, right? Maybe I'll look at this water now. And if I find myself rushing or something, I note that and I say, why are you rushing? Go a little slower now. We rush a lot. I'm a rusher. I've been reprogramming rushing for many years because that's like that whole dysregulated nervous system. You know, if you've been diagnosed with ADHD, you're going to be, maybe you're a type that is like me. It's like, I always gotta go till you're completely knocked out, you know, and we're trying to find our way back to balance, which is what this is about. So I'm looking at, and I find maybe 5 things, but don't rush it, you know, take your time. I think of also all of the things that I missed in all these years when I haven't lived in Florida permanently for 13 years. Every time I'd come back here, I would do all these comparisons about the nature. Oh, the green is not as green as this one over there. Oh, we don't have these trees here. Oh, this isn't as good. Comparison, judgment. And every time I'd come back, I started practicing when I'd visit, like, no, that's a comparison. That's a judgment. That's taking me out of the present moment and depriving me of the love and the bliss and all of that is right here, right now. The joy right here, right? And man, I must have missed out on a lot of joy, because as I've moved back here to be more permanent now, you know, who knows for how many years, but this is where I grew up. I'm having these beautiful experiences where I think, oh yes, that's the way that this stuff, this kind of, I guess it's like moss that's in here. That's the way this looked. I don't see that type of thing elsewhere. That's a comparison too. But I think that I was neglecting being present with this kind of stuff, these parts of nature, I could say, right? I wasn't even appreciating it. And every day when I take my walk, I say to myself, what haven't I appreciated today? What have I not appreciated yet today? And I love that phrase because it reminds me that that's what love is about. So I was thinking, I just went to the sounds. So go through all the senses. I could go to feeling the breeze come through. The sun hitting me here now. I can choose to focus on that sun now. On how the warmth is, all of this. But not talking. I'm talking to you. But if I was just here without us on video, I would keep on putting my attention on the warmth of the sun. The feeling of it. And now in my present moment in this environment, the wind is picking up. That's part of this environment, which I'm choosing to focus on. Nature is easy for us to focus on, really, because we are nature, right? This is so delicious, you know, it's so delicious. And this is why I say just start off with this, at least. You don't have to go immediately to sitting meditation, but it's not a substitution. So I could go to my feeling as well, and I could put my feet on the ground, and I can walk around here, hopefully not step on any poop. This is really good for us. It's called earthing. You know, of course, be careful if they're spraying stuff on it, because you don't want any extra glyphosate. We're full of this these days, and it's causing a lot of cancer and things in the body, a lot of toxins. I feel like this tree doesn't want to be touched. This one, I know you might think I'm crazy. This one wants to be touched, and I might touch that and give it my attention. And I'm just looking and giving it my attention, my full attention, because you see, this is what love is as well. Love is focusing our attention, our undivided attention at something or someone. And it's what we choose to, right? So this is also the thing about meditation and arriving in the present moment. This is a choice. And we start to ingrain this choice, and this is where it becomes very, very empowering. It's trying to spread out my little donut towel here. It's empowering because how many times a day do you get off track of something that maybe you wanted to focus on, right? It's disempowering when you cannot focus. So what we're doing is we're making basically new neural pathways as well. We're retraining the mind to focus on what we are choosing to focus on. We make the intention of what the object of meditation is, and that's what we choose to focus on. Anytime these thoughts arise, the judgments, the comparisons, the planning of what we're doing later, that's not happening now. That's not real. It's not real. That takes us out of the actual moment. So when that happens, bring your attention back, right? To what you chose to focus on. And naturally what's going to happen, you know, especially in the early days of meditation, is we're going to get frustrated with ourselves. We're going to look down on ourselves. I'm such a bad meditator, blah, blah, blah. That's all bullshit that the mind says, that the ego really says. And so the ego is thriving on this kind of you know, it's always hurt. It's always like everything's unfair. It's like a poor me thing. And that's just the nature of the ego, okay? And what we do is just we note that we're getting frustrated and just, I'm not going to choose to be frustrated. I'm going to choose to come back to the moment. The moment. So go around to all your 5 senses and be in the moment, right? There's something else that I wanted to say. What was it? Something I wanted to say earlier was to take these off, right? I like to listen to music while walking just as much as the next person, right? It's nice sometimes to have, especially certain songs. They are nice out in nature. And I have definitely become one of those people that instead of keeping them on, sometimes I play it and we'll walk around with it, you know, just playing. Because for one thing, these are really bad for our brain and it's probably causing some cancer. Another thing though is my point is that to be in the present moment. And when we keep those on, we're blocking out our surroundings. Also, part of my practice is to greet people as I walk. I smile and I say hello to them as often as possible. And I know that when I have those in, I have to make not only an extra effort to say hello and greet people, because when people see, because also it's a barrier for me, but it's a barrier for them. Because we know it's an instinctual thing now when we see people closed off with headphones that they're not paying attention to us. You get me? So now my practice is when I put them on is that I'm going to greet someone anyway. So I have to put extra energy into that. But I have to play some hardball with myself too. Not always comfort. These are about comfort. Because if you're coming, especially, excuse the children in the background, they're part of the environment as well. I'm glad children are out playing. It makes me happy because so many children are just inside way too much. This makes me happy now. Anyway, I understand being a person who, you know, you have ADHD, you are overstimulated. You use these in order to block out an overstimulation from the environment. Let me tell you, after years of this practice, I can say that actually that makes me less aware of my environment and it's depriving me of the present moment more. And it's, what's the word? It's putting me in a place of comfort where I could be actually improving my condition. And so I don't let myself wear them all the time. I go on walks where I take them off for portions of it, or I don't walk with them on. You have to be willing once again. I get it. They're a comfort. They're a comfort when you're overstimulated, but a lot of people today just want to rely on medications for these diagnoses that they're getting. And if you actually are sincere, if you really want to repattern your brain, make new neural pathways, heal ADHD, heal anxiety, then you've got to be willing to get out of the comfort zone. And I know people are going to personalize what I'm saying. I know. I would have probably heard myself at some other point and be like, she's so annoying, blah, 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 blah. The ego would have said that, really. Nowadays, I know that all of the effort that I put in and the dedication to repattern, it's an ongoing practice, by the way. I would never be where I'm at now if I didn't do that. Okay? And so, and I know that I can heal ADHD, anxiety, depression. You can heal all of this. If you think that you can't, then you're deluded. Someone has deluded you, perhaps with a lot of commercials about taking certain things. And I'm not anti-medication, by the way, guys. If you think that, I could say a lot about that whole journey of mine. I'm not telling you to dump your meds or whatever. What I will say is I encourage you to start implementing the lifestyle choices. Lifestyle choices. Do you see how empowering that sounds? Choices. Not, I'm just going to take this pill and it's going to do the work for me. Because that's the thing, is they don't do all the work for you. You may find a medication that actually is very helpful. It took me many years of trying out different things. I found one that helped. I don't take it anymore. That's another story of why. But it was actually, for, you know, this is an extreme word to say, perhaps, but it was enlightening for me to see the potential or the possibilities of what my mind could be if it didn't go in those directions, we'll say. Of what it could be like to actually hear a conversation fully and not have to, like, work so hard to focus on what a person was saying or read a chapter of something, blah, blah, blah. But nowadays, I've been developing and I have developed the ability to focus on what I choose. But it doesn't come easy, maybe. But, you know, that's how these practices are. It's a muscle to be worked. It's all a muscle. But I want to say that this, arriving in the present moment, this is the fruit of it all. It's the fruit of what love really is being able to choose to focus our attention on something. To really be here, to be present. It's not, it seems hard, but when you start to practice it, you see that this is simplicity. We don't need to be more than what this is now. We don't need this moment to be something else that's not really here. We start to appreciate what this is right now. It's delicious. So that is my message for this. I'm splicing this in to cold plunge to day 15 of 31 days of cold plunging. I'm splicing this in here. I had a different message that day, if you're curious. It's one that I'm going to hit on at some other point. I wanted there to be something of continuity to these videos, and I felt like that message became a little half-baked that day. No pun intended, actually. Anyway. It wasn't, not to be like it could have been good enough, but there's more I want to say, and I want to connect it in more continuity with things that are connected to it, if you follow what I'm trying to say here. And this is what was really speaking through to me right here today, and it feels natural. And I'm going with that these days, of when I'm sharing my dharma, that it's reaching people on the days when it needs to. So with that being said, I'm splicing in visions of Colorado of me cold plunging in those days. And yeah, I won't be cold plunging in these waters because South Florida, I mean, there are some wild things down there like crocodiles and alligators, and you never know what's down there. It's crazy because when I was a kid, we used to just jump in to places like we didn't even think about it. And nowadays I'd be like, I don't know if I would do that because you don't know what's down there. But I'm not going to go into comparison mode. I've done that so many times here. Instead, I'm going to appreciate all of the things that I can appreciate here. Like above me is this beautiful bottle brush tree. And I don't see these elsewhere. But that's also a comparison. But I'm going to just appreciate. The bottle brush has these little red fuzzy wuzzies. But none of them have really fallen down. I guess maybe in a few weeks. I don't know what their season is like, actually. And that's something that I can start watching. We can start watching the changes in the environment day after day if we're present with them. Another thing that I do to be in the present moment is I will spread out, I didn't spread this out very well, a picnic blanket or some kind of towel. And I just lay here. I lay down. This is a severely underrated, nourishing act of self-care. Just lay down. You can do this for like 5 minutes and just look up at the trees and just look and feel it and just be here. And also, if you're trying to do like a meditation where you're like, I am going to do this for X amount of time. Let's say it's 5 minutes. If you're like how I was, and sometimes this creeps up for sure, and the mind is like worrying, oh, I gotta do this, oh, I gotta blah, 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 planning, anything that's outside of this moment. I just go gently remind myself, or maybe I'll do it firmly. I set aside these 5 minutes. I've already assured myself that I have set these 5 minutes. I already made that commitment. Nothing else is going to disrupt me. We don't need to run in these 5 minutes because I've set them aside. So that this worry, I am allowed to suspend this worry at this moment. I hope that makes sense. I hope that helps you. Anyways, let's shimmy over to day 15 of 31 days of cold plunging. Day 15 of 31 days of cold plunging. I'm at the mid-mark. Wow, I can't believe that's happened. All right, that was nice. Very different cold plunge today than usual so far. The water was warmer. It is the hotter part of the day. It's in the 3 p.m. time, and the water was only in the 60s compared to the 30s, right? And I look back at the tape now, and yeah, of course I knew I stayed in longer and was playing a little bit more in there. It's still a little cold, you know, but that was really nice to get in a body of water like that and start to get used to it and be able to play. I realized when I look back at the tape, I was like, oh, I guess I didn't submerge up to here because I was playing around a little bit, but I feel content. It's not that I couldn't have done that, but I'll keep that in mind to maybe sit in the submersion a bit more next time, tomorrow. In day 16. Oh my God. I can't believe that that I've done this. I don't even remember what got into my head to do this, by the way. I might have to look back at day 1. I think I said that in day 1. I don't know what's gotten into me. But sometimes I just follow through with certain ideas that just come to me. I wanted to merge some topics and not make it all about cold plunge, really, and use it as an inspiration, right? Today, though, I'm a little fatigued. I'm on another day of my cleanse. Here's my empty juice cup and or juice jar, and it's definitely, yeah, it's. I feel the fatigue. I feel the autophagy of my cells, for sure. Thank you for joining. Like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow in day 16. Mwah.